There might be 1,000 reasons why your music is not getting licensed for TV and film and commercials, but today we're going to oversimplify it and focus on 3 things: the beginning, the middle, and the end. I'm coming at this from the perspective of a media composer who primarily writes for production music libraries. I write in all styles and genres, and those songs go into massive libraries, and I hope that they get picked and used in all kinds of cool stuff. I'll get to the beginning, middle, and end part in a second, I promise. But I think it's important to know who exactly we are creating these tracks for. My success in this business depends on editors, filmmakers, and directors who I will most likely never meet, finding my music in hopes that when they take that music, it will make what they're doing better. Their TV shows, their movies, their commercials. You'll go from thinking, wow, this is a really cool sound, this is a really cool idea, to who is going to use this and in what scenario are they going to use this track. Not only are we trying to make great music, we're trying to convince people to use the great music that we've made. If we can think about the challenges and the needs of the people who are actually using our music, I guarantee that'll give us a better shot. I would prefer writing a custom piece of music for every single YouTube video that I release. That's absolutely not practical. And for most editors and directors out there, having custom music for their projects is not practical either. It's too expensive, it takes too much time, and the majority of the music that we hear on commercials and reality television shows, well, that's production music. These poor editors, they have to listen to 1,000 tracks before they find the one that works for them. And when they get to mine, I want them to think, yeah, I can do something with this. The beginning of the song is the first impression. We might get 2 to 3 seconds if we're lucky. If they like that, we might get 20, 25 seconds. If they like that, then they're going to skip around to all the different parts and go to the ending. I know there are times when an editor takes a track that they can then edit to. That happens often. But I think that most of the time, editors have an idea of the story. They have an idea of what shots they want to use, kind of when and where, but they need that piece of music to help them visualize it. Us audio editors and video editors, we're very similar in that we're both visual. We think in terms of a timeline, and we may not like to admit it as audio people, but we see music and we see it react in EQs and all that, but we see it on the timeline. We can see the way arrangements build, and it's just like that, even more so with video editors. I know when I have my shots kind of laid out in the timeline, I have a basic idea of what I want to happen, and when I hear that right track, when I hear it swell into the intro, I think, oh, I can use my wide establishing shot here. And as soon as the beat hits, I can drop it down and go straight into my dialogue. It starts to visually happen for me, and that inspires me. And if I can get the first part of the track to make sense to me, then that's going to make me more inclined to want to work that track into the rest of my video. Practically speaking, swells work nice. Anything that you can do to give it a nice 6 or 8 second ramp up. You don't want to lose interest with a long build, but keep in mind that as long as you hit that downbeat on 1, most editors can listen to that build and say, oh, I've got my shot here. And if it's 2 seconds, well, they can just fade it in and then have that moment of impact. Make it unique, make it inspiring, and make it memorable. Now to the middle of the track. Let's pretend that we have a long section of dialogue, and maybe it's 4.5 minutes long. Well, most production music tracks are not going to be that long. If I know that I'm writing an underscore track that will be used in a situation like this, I want to make sure that my middle section can be shortened rather easily, or more than likely it can be extended rather easily. You need to keep a few things in mind when you're composing this way. I've used the phrase change without changing quite a bit. Basically, I want the same piece of music to go on for a while and feel different without feeling too different. Simply looping 2 bars over and over again, that's not good enough. Even if it's low in the mix, our ears can pick up on the fact that it's the same thing over and over again. If you're playing a physical instrument, well, that's a little bit easier because you can play an extended period of time and make some adjustments to your finger-picking pattern or strumming pattern or the inversions that you play on a piano. And I suggest when you're done playing that acoustic guitar part or recording the piano, strum each chord that you play in the song. So if it's G, C, and D, strum a G, strum a C, drum a D. Because you might, what did I say? That way, if you get to the point where you're trying to do this whole change without changing thing, let's say you have piano, acoustic guitar. I'm going to talk this way. Say you have piano, acoustic guitar, and electric guitar. Those all kind of fit in that mid-range. So at the beginning of the middle section, you might drop the electric guitar and have the acoustic guitar and piano play for a while, then drop the acoustic guitar and bring the electric guitar in, then drop the piano and just have acoustic guitars. What you don't want to do is if the drum and the bass or any other instrument is providing a substantial amount of the energy to the track. If you drop those out, well then you run the risk of it feeling kind of awkward underneath that dialogue. One of the best things you can do is turn your track way down and listen to what happens when you mute those instruments. If all of that bed goes away, it might not be your best choice. And that leads to the discussion of drops and starts and stops, but again, that's probably for another video. Now to the ending. Two things that you will seldom hear in production music tracks. Key changes, that's a big no-no, and fade outs. There are times in kind of ambient tracks where it can kind of fall off, but for the most part, the composed ending is incredibly important. What is a composed ending? Every song needs a clearly defined moment where the track is coming to an end. It can be a split second of lead up to hit that mark, or it can be a few bars that lead up to it. But it's very important that we give the editor something that they can take along with maybe the beginning and part of the middle and then connect it to where it sounds cohesive. Most of the time, unfortunately, our 2.5 minute, 3 minute long tracks are going to be cut down into something more like 30 seconds. So when you're writing your track, it's important that you think about how the beginning, middle, and end can go together. You don't want to have an ending that's so off the wall and weird that you can't connect it to any other part of the track. If an editor can't make that work, they're probably going to move on. One thing I've learned along the way, especially when writing more positive, upbeat music, which you need to be writing a lot, just trust me on that, is that the ending can be telegraphed. It can be a little smiley and cheesy and cute, more so than you would do on any other type of project. When you hear that for the first time in the hands of a really good editor, and you see your music that you thought was a little cheesy, used with the right visuals and with the right dialogue. Remember, our music is just one part of the process. When it's done right, it doesn't quite feel as cheesy and it really sells what the editor is trying to sell. That's pretty cool. Just like with the beginning of a track, a good composed ending gives the editor a tool that can make the whole project sound cohesive. Not like, oh, they went and grabbed this from a library. As if the people got together and worked on what this track needed to look and sound like. There were a handful of times I wanted to stop this video and give disclaimers about, well, not all tracks behave like this. I think you get that. For everything that I've said, someone's done the opposite and probably made a lot of money. But what I really want you to get from this video is that without overthinking it and get bogged down, you want to stay creative. But you've got to think about who is going to use the music in the end and work backwards. The more research that I can do on the type of person, the type of company, the type of show that might want this music, if I can attract them to it and then keep them once they've heard it, well, that's how you start nickel and diming your way to a career in this business. It's hard work, but I think there are some ways that we can kind of break it down into chunks that make sense. Work on those things, do the best that we can with those specific guidelines in mind, and the rest will hopefully take care of itself, hopefully. I started this channel a couple years ago talking about music for licensing, so I'll link to a playlist if you want more of this type of content. Hopefully you have questions after this. Please leave those in the comments, and I'll try to make more videos about this topic in the future. Take care.